just get straight into the questions.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Um, well, I was born with golden heart syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty rare disease that not many people know of. And I was in intensive care for like a few months. I had like a bunch of surgeries. I had like a cleft lip. I was born with like scoliosis. Um, my dad was never around. I still haven't met him to this day. Uh, my mom was on drugs for a bit, but she got clean eventually, which is pretty cool. And it was me, my grandma, my mom, and my brother growing up in the small house in Benicia, right down the street. And yeah, I don't know.
How'd your childhood feel for you?
Um, I had friends. Like I always had friends, but I still felt like alone because of just what I went through. Because I got pulled out of class, and I remember it was like fifth grade. I got pulled out of class every Wednesday for a month to like do whatever I wanted, and that was when like I kind of like a light bulb switch went on, and that's when I was like taken out of the box basically, and I was like forced to think different from that day on because my questions were never really answered or never really could be answered. And like I would ask like why me, like why aren't my friends getting this time off, and they would say that I needed it or that I deserved it, and I didn't really understand at the time. But I remember like a few weeks after that, I would go to Oakland for my appointments, my doctor's appointments, and that's where I saw like the bad part of towns and like the streets at like a young age. Like I remember I was on the crosswalk going into my Oakland Children's Hospital, and I remember seeing like a naked lady running, just completely bruised, like head to toe, like run into the hospital that I am walking into, like, and that was like fifth grade, fourth grade when that happened, to where I've just had a bunch of surgeries and doctor's appointments that have like pulled me out of class and away from society in a way, to where everybody's social distancing right now because of a virus. But I social distance myself my entire life because of the way I was born. And that's where I feel like my story and what I've gone through can help people with a lot of what's going on right now and today. Because I know what it's like to be isolated and to be alone and to not want to go outside even though you're able, you can, but you can't. It was all in my head, but now it's an actual virus out there in the world that's like stopping me from socializing, which is kind of a weird like aspect.
What were your dreams as a child?
Um, you know, when I was during that same age in elementary school, I I got really good at basketball, like really good at basketball, to where like it was my outlet. Like it allowed me to like fit in, and it gave me like it allowed me to express myself without having to like speak, because the questions went from why are you born like this, or like why do you look like this, to like damn, like how can that dude shoot like that, or like how can that dude like dribble like that, like to where I got made fun of and got called like a lot of names growing up, but then as soon as I picked up basketball and got good at basketball, I started getting like the good nicknames, like I stopped getting made fun of and I started getting nicknames. People started calling me like Magic Man, or like people would call me like Strokes, or McLovin, just a bunch of just random nicknames, to where yeah, like I always wanted to play basketball. That was like a big dream of mine. But I also recently I've been wanting to like share my story and help anybody who is in my position, or anybody who's felt the way that I felt growing up. But growing up, it was like basketball was huge. Music, music helped me, was a big outlet for me. Like music would have been cool, like a big dream when I was growing up.
You told me that you never met your dad. So the next question is, tell me about your relationship with your dad. So since he wasn't there, what did it feel like not having him? Or if you had a father figure, what did that feel like?
To get a little into detail about that is kind of um, it was a lot to take in. My mom like pulled me aside in sixth or seventh grade, because I have a half brother, and we have different last names and we don't necessarily look alike. So I always kind of had in the back of my head, I figured something was up, like because his dad was around growing up, like he was a father figure for a little bit, but even he wasn't around as much, to where I had a bunch of friends, dads who were father figures growing up, which was really cool. But yeah, my mom pulled me aside like sixth or seventh grade to tell me that me and my brother are different dads, and that I also have a half sister, and they're both still in the same town, like literally, like it's not even like miles away, different state. They're literally like in the same small town. To where the next day, I like see her at school, like because she said, you have this half sister, you have another dad. So I go into the yearbook, and I just start an hour in the yearbook scrambling through pictures, and then finally I like name off the last name. My mom was like, yeah, like that's your half sister. To where the next day at school, I'm like forced. She's a grade above me. To where I'm like forced already, with everything that I'm going through socially as a kid, not feeling like I fit in, getting made fun of. I had to deal with going to school with supposedly my sister, to where all I had was friends at the time. To where I tell a friend, friend tells a friend, next thing you know, it's like she finds out that just about the news, to where she ends up like, this is when like MySpace was the thing, it's like when we first got phones. Like we probably shouldn't even have phones at this young of an age. It was like we first got phones, she's like DMs me like, is this true? And that's such like a weird, it's so ironic to ask me if it's true, because you're in his household, like I'm just hearing it from my mom, it's like, to where if it's true, he would know, or like your side would know, to where at the end of the day, I ended up reaching out to her. Like this is 8th grade, middle school, this happened. I ended up reaching out to her a month ago just to apologize for all of this, because I felt bad that for even bringing that up, for her, for me, for both of us to even have to deal with that at such a young age, And she was appreciative, or she liked that I reached out to her and apologized, and she said that she would, if I needed or if I wanted, she would give me his information, his contact information. But I'm not sure if I'm necessarily ready to take that step or if it's even worth it, at the end of the day. But there's an empathetic part of me that does, that does want to reach out to him and be the bigger man and just, even if it does, might not help myself, but maybe it helps him, or maybe it could help even her relationship with with her father, because I guess she told me that he hasn't really been around since middle school anyway. So I thought I had that. This is the thought, like, what if I reach out to him and it just kind of heals the whole circle, But that could be just a lot to ask for, and I haven't really taken that step necessarily.
How does it feel just reflecting on all that?
Yeah, it's a lot. A father figure can be so much to somebody. Even like, especially like an athlete, or anybody who has some sort of like outlet, or to where I would like play basketball and I would like see the stands, and I got to see the dads and the moms and and even like commercials, hit hard when I see just commercials with just like big families, like I've always wanted a big family, but a big family, isn't necessarily the best, like I've heard people say the opposite, like they wish they didn't have so much family and so much problems, but I don't know.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
We're really close, and I couldn't help but just feel bad for her growing up, that she had to do what she had to do, like, alone, whether it be her with the drugs issue or her like raising me and my brother. And there's like a bunch of nights where she would say she was just there with me at the hospital, just growing up, always having to just be in and out, to where it wasn't easy for her, for sure. But yeah, we're really close.
What did you learn from both your parents? One not being there, and then from the one who raised you.
The one not With my father not being there, I learned how to fill voids. I learned how to, if there's a hole, if this is a problem, I wouldn't fix it necessarily. I would just push it to the side, which is not good. Whether it be through basketball, through different outlets, music. Not having a father allowed me to be stronger, for sure. Having to deal with certain problems, and it's funny, like I never liked Father's Day until my best friends became fathers. That's like the first time I was actually able to say like Happy Father's Day to somebody, was like my best friend, and that's like a really cool way to look at it. But on the flip side, having my mom around just taught me a lot about like love and like strength,
Can you tell me about your first love and how that felt? And the first love can be a person, it can be a thing, it can be a passion, it can be anything.
Yeah, my first love was definitely basketball. And that's what got me to fit in. That's what got me to be a part of society with without any limitations other than me and myself, because I had to get the doctor's okay to even play basketball. Like, it wasn't given to me, and then I had surgeries try to like take me away from it, to where like basketball, the love for basketball, I still play it today. I literally just showered up, just got off the court like an hour ago, to where basketball has always been my first love, and will probably like remain like a love of mine.
Can you tell me about your first loss or heartbreak? And this is the same thing. It can be in any way, and how that felt.
I lost a really good friend of mine in a car crash a few years back. My friend Mario, who was new out of state, coming here, to where he was like the new student, the new guy, to where he was alone, and I know what that feels like. So I'm one of the first people to reach out to him, and I was just like we got really close, and I basically brought him into the friend group with like open arms. He'd just come over to our houses and stuff, and I haven't lost any family members, thankfully, yet, and that was the first biggest loss of mine was my friend Mario, who passed away in a car accident one night on his way back from work.
Who first taught you love, and how?
I would say my mom and grandma, probably. That would be the best bet. They just by the way they raised me and what they had to deal with, whether it be my surgeries and all these things that just went wrong, but everything ended up being still okay. It's just the way how they just stuck through it.
What's love to you now versus what it was to you as a youth, and how do those two different loves feel?
Love for me back then was never love for myself. It was always other things filling me with love, whether it be basketball or even other people. To where there was a point where I loved my friends and family more than I even loved myself. To where that love, the younger love, is what kept me here, and was what kept me going. And as of just recently, as I've been able to face my past and face all these problems and everything I've gone through, the love now is from outwards, in that sense. Where it was growing up, it was outwards in, and now slowly but surely the love is in out.
Can you tell me about a general good day for you?
Basketball for sure has to be somewhere in there. Playing basketball. As of recently, helping people.
Yeah.
Helping people, whether it just be conversation. Because all these things that I've gone through, I've never told anybody. Like I've been having, since quarantine, I've been having 2 or 3 hour phone calls with friends that I've known since childhood. Some of them didn't even know about my half sister or about any of this stuff. I never talked to a therapist to this day about any of this stuff. To where it was a lot of stuff, like gathered up over 25 years, to where I've been releasing it, and in return, people have been opening up and releasing their negative energies.
Yeah.
So I've come to learn that, and I like helping people, and a good day would be nice to help people share their story or share their like problems, because I just don't want anybody to go through like what I did. I just hid alone for like way too long. Now I know the importance of like speaking up and just letting it out, and
How does it feel being more comfortable talking about what you've been through?
It does feel like a weight has been lifted for sure. Like, it's only been a month of me being able to even speak any of this, for me to even like put into words, emotions, feeling, all of it. So I'm just now being able to sit here and be able to do this right now.
On the flip side of that, can you tell me about a bad day and how you pushed through that bad day?
The bad day, I'm sure everybody has them. You feel like the world is just like against you. You feel like nothing is going right. Nobody understands. Nobody listens, nor understands. And recently, I've been doing a lot of self-reflection and like self-appreciation, whether it be through exercising, or like reading, writing. I've been trying to just get my mind right in those certain situations.
Yeah.
Because I do, like, when those days are bad, I want to isolate myself. I don't want anybody, if I can't deal with it, like, why would I want anybody else to deal with it? I don't want to bring negativity to anybody's table. So that's why I didn't say anything for 20 years to anybody. I was always the friend to be there. And everybody's told me that. I've always been somebody who would listen. But like never, didn't matter how close you were to me. I just never spoke about my problems.
Can you tell me about an event or person that has shaped you, good or bad? And how does that feel when you reflect on it?
There's so many inspirations for sure. One of the first ones, most recent ones, would be Kobe Bryant and his passing, and what he did here, like on this planet, was just crazy. Like his mindset, his work ethic. Like I wish he could hear my basketball story.
Yeah.
Like he'd be juiced. And I would practice his moves at the court, and I still use his moves like at the court. To where he's definitely one of them. And then my family too, my brother and mom and grandma. There's a bunch of friends that have inspired me.
What has been a humbling experience for you?
I actually just made this Instagram account, like, partly inspired by you guys and like what you're doing. Where like I tried to tackle too many things at once one day, man. I tried to sign up for school. I'm on disability because of my back, so I'm like trying to figure out if I should go like work a part time. Should I like figure out work or not? I was reaching out to a bunch of people, like ghostwriters. I was reaching out to ghostwriters and like producers, trying to get like either a book or my story heard through like a documentary. And I've even thought of like ideas for like social media or like a part of me wants to do like a nonprofit or something, even look into that. And but that's this one day I tried doing all this stuff. I made this one Instagram, and I was born with golden hair, so I just threw a T at the end, golden heart. And I added you, and I added a bunch of people on a 3-year account, but I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
I just kind of posted my own baby picture,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Ethan." Just opened up on it. 25 years worth of stuff. And the first day, 100 followers.
Nice.
Three DM. That's the thing. So I posted it. I'm like, "Here's my story. Now share yours." They're like, "DM me, and I'll just post what you want me to post." It's like I created this Instagram as like a wall for anybody to go to and just share and let go of any negative energies and stuff. Toward the first day, I get 100 followers, 3 DMs, and I don't want to go too into depth about like the DMs or stories, but one of them was a little girl who was struggling with mental illness, which is crazy, and like a good example of why I created the page. It's like one of the first examples. I thought it was just a young person, young kid hitting me up, wanting to let loose. The second one was an older woman who said she was in an abusive relationship for like 13 years. So I'm just like, man, like, this is like a little kid, the older woman in an abusive relationship. I kid you not, the third person to DM me is this dude from Gambia in Africa. And he wants me to post his story. And this is just within 24 hours of me having this page open. I could have had this page open for weeks and got no love whatsoever. But I make the post for the friend in Gambia, and he's asking for more help. And that's just like such a sad place for him to be in, because it's him. But it's very humbling and hard for me to be in, because I don't have. He wanted money. He told me this crazy story about he needed money for his siblings in Africa. And I don't even have the money he was asking for myself. To where I couldn't help but I didn't know if it was even real for a second. Like, is this dude scamming me maybe? I just have like a bunch of just different thoughts, to where he ends up FaceTiming me through Instagram. And I answer it. And he asked if I could hear the frogs. because literally, like, there was this, it sounded like he was next to, like, the swamp or something, man. It was like, he was on FaceTime with me, and he was just in, like, a really bad area in Gambia. I could tell, I could tell he was really, this was a real person in Africa, to where I felt bad that I couldn't help him. I couldn't give him the money that he needed, but at the end of the day, you can't help anybody unless you help yourself first. So I almost bit off more than I can chew that day, making that Instagram account and expecting that to happen, to where I ended up sending him just 20 or like $30 just for like food, just to just see if it was even real, if it was even legit. And then the next day he sends me pictures of him at the market and like what he got for his siblings, like the next day, which was a pretty humbling experience. Just 24 hours, I make this Instagram account, I open up, and just the responses I've gotten in the DMs alone have been like surreal. Like the good things people are saying about the account, how much they love like what the account is doing. For the first 24 hours, you got like 3 posts and like sent money to some siblings in Africa for like money or for food. And that was just like a very humbling 24 hours of like what one person can do.
Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war.
So one day, everything hit me at once at night. It's a bunch of questions, like life questions that everybody deals with. It's like, why me? Why now? Why this? Why that? To where I like ran off I ran off looking for answers, and to be alone and to look for answers. And long story short, I just could not avoid confrontation. I could not avoid social contact for that day. I see 2 or 3 friends within 10 or so minutes apart while I'm just trying to walk and get my mind off of things. So I go to this hill to be alone, and this woman walks up, and she asked me if I'm okay, and I don't tell her anything. I tell her I'm fine, to where she ends up turning back around, sitting next to me, and she asked me if I'm meditating. And it started off really slow. Like, she asked me if I'm meditating. And like, I know what meditating is, I know it's like good for you. I know I probably should be doing it, but it is not, that is not what I was doing on the hill. I was just really focused, just trying to figure things out. And it didn't take long for her to start breaking down about life. And she too said that she went up there looking for answers. Mm-hmm. And she says all this stuff, all these like mental issues, suicidal, like drugs, all this stuff, to where we were both there for the same reason. Weirdly enough, I've never felt so belittled in my life. I don't necessarily believe, I don't know what to believe. God, it's I haven't, to where that really, like, that was one of the first moments where I really felt like belittled, that there was some sort of higher power or force that like made us meet, and we helped each other for sure.
What do you mean by belittled? That there was a higher? Do you mean more like that sense, or you saw felt the vastness of
Yeah,
the universe?
yeah, to where like I almost had to like take a breath and just like look
You
around.
looked around and you felt that you were one of
Bro, it
so much.
literally woke up from the Matrix.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is months before this is weeks, this is Easter.
yeah.
This is weeks before all these riots and protests and all this.
So it wasn't necessarily belittled per se. It was more like humble truly
Yes,
per
yeah,
se.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is true.
And then so she's there, and you're there for the same reason. And she says, you know, would you say that in that moment that you were there to ask questions, or you also maybe a tad bit suicidal, just like the other
You know,
lady?
that's the question that gets brought up. When I've told this story, this incident is why I'm here right now.
Yeah.
This is why she vented me her whole life story on this hill when I went out looking for answers to be alone. And I couldn't. I literally could not be alone. And she spewed me her whole life story to where she turns and looks at me and like wants me to like ping pong. You know, she wants me to tell her my side.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can get off my chest is that I hid for too long.
Yeah.
You know? So she gets up, like, asks me for my number and stuff, to where we exchange numbers. And ever since that day, I've been open and I've been expressing myself, and I've grew up. You know, I just faced my past. I've had to backtrack basically 25 years of my life to catch up mentally and physically to where I am now. That was a big problem in my life, is living in the moment, like being present, you know? I was always looking back at the whys of like surgeries and all this stuff, and I was always looking forward to the future. Like, when am I getting fixed? Because I always felt like an unfinished product when it came to like surgeries and stuff. I was just waiting for it to finally be over, you know? So I finally thought that would be the time for me to be socially acceptable, you know? But at the end of the day, it's all within. To where the last doctor's appointment I had, they sat me down and asked, basically told me it's up to me now. It's like, all these other surgeries I had were mandatory. Because when I was 16, I had lockjaw, to where I couldn't even open my mouth. And this is during basketball season too, to where I had to have surgery. I lost a bunch of weight, and it allowed me to even open my mouth. Like, there was a minute where I couldn't even eat in public. I couldn't even wouldn't eat at my friend's house. To where after these surgeries that were mandatory, he sat me down and told me, like, well, now it's on you. Like, what do you want? Like, we could go in and we can like fix your nose, you know, fix your. So I couldn't help but feel like a Hollywood, you know, or like an actor from Hollywood or something, to where like I really feel bad with the pressure of what society does to us in terms of like what women go through, plastic surgery, you know. It's like there's just so many aspects in which my life and what I've gone through can affect and help people. And I really do. I feel like I just got up and left, you know, and I haven't gone back. You know, I could have gotten all this stuff fixed. I could have gotten, you know, but you don't need the nose jobs. You don't need, you know, you don't need the other operations done to be socially acceptable, man or women.
So same question, type of question. Go in your mind and think this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
The basketball court. is a place of peace for me for sure. Like a sanctuary. It definitely is a highlight and allowed me to find peace for sure. Basketball and music.
Can you describe that piece emotionally?
Just very fulfilling, like very at I'm losing the word. It's just very fulfilling.
Can you tell me about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, and how you endured?
Probably my most recent surgery. The surgery basically put me back to square one in a sense, to where they went in and pulled my jaw forward as far as they could, to where I was just so swollen and so like messed up. They even took a bone out my hip. They did like a bone graft to fix a hole in my palate. To where for that like year or so, couldn't really walk much because of the bone that was taken out my hip. I couldn't even eat, couldn't even really like sleep necessarily. There's so many things where I felt like I was having to like learn to like live again in a sense, just even in the littlest ways. To where it was hard, but then it also was like eye-opening, like humbling in the sense that like I'm here and I need to get to here. Just the transformation or the having to go through the process of like rehab can it can either like break you or make you in a sense, to where that definitely made me think different. Having to start all these things over again that are just so simple for the average person.
And how do you persevere through that?
Just like love with like friends and family, and just knowing that it was for the right reasons, or knowing that it was going to be okay, and that eventually I'll be able to share the emotions and what it was like to go through that to people and the world, to like help.
So the next question is a question I normally don't ask, but we're going to start asking just due to the times. Can you talk a little bit about how COVID has just affected you in general with your life, or just any, how it affects just you right here?
It's funny that question gets brought up so much when I speak of everything that I'm going through. So I've basically been like venting, like just opening up to where people, that's the first thing they ask me. It's like, yo, are you okay? Like, is it because of quarantines, because of COVID? Like I wish I really wish it was that easy or that simple, but it's not. This quarantine stuff and the virus is scary for sure, without a doubt. But the idea of being socially isolated and quarantined is nothing new to me in that sense. I've done it my whole life, and I even it was weird. I even grew up wishing, like wishing that I could wear a mask in a store, you know, like that would have been so much easier for me growing up. I wouldn't have gotten made fun of, wouldn't have gotten the looks that I got. But now that now that I'm here, being like acceptable with how I am and how I look, now everybody's wearing a mask. Now I can't even show myself in public, or can't even do any of those things. To where COVID, the only thing that really hits me hard with COVID is my grandmother and her age, and me being a liability, or her having troubles with the virus. That's the only thing that scares me, and it's an outside force. It's my grandma. In terms of me, myself, nothing's necessarily changed socially, physically, mentally,
Can you tell me about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
There's so many basketball memories I could bring up. Basketball for sure. Probably that, as of recently, probably that Instagram account. And, just what it was able to do just within 24 to 48 hours, and the feedback that I got from it, and allowing, or actually helping, people in Africa.
What keeps you up at night?
Leaving this earth, passing away, dying, without speaking up, without getting all this story out there to the world. Because I feel like I really can help people of all aspects of life. I've been through so much to where, as of recently, it does scare me, the idea that I was quiet for so long, 25 years, not saying anything. And the first time I do the first time I do speak about it was to the chick on the hilltop. And she said that it gave her more hope and purpose. Just me opening up for the first time. So I start to think, who else can I impact? Who else can I affect? And even the what ifs fly in, what if I had done this sooner? Who could I have helped sooner? It's just, which isn't a good road to go down. But, yeah.
What keeps you going every day?
Probably the same reason. To get my story heard, to help people. I don't want anybody to go through what I did, or what I did to myself, And there's this quote from Michael Singletary where he talks about greatness. He says greatness isn't, greatness is what you've done with what you've had, basically. It's with all the trials and tribulations, have you been able to overcome it? Have you been able to push through it? That's what makes somebody great. Not necessarily their talents, but just what they've gone through and the obstacles they've had to face through their past. is a good value of somebody's greatness.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets?
Just not going out, just not being a part of society, and not traveling, just not being my true self, basically, which I'm slowly starting to, day by day, which is really important for everybody. Yeah.
So you're gonna make it, you're alive and well. Do you feel you can change that regret? If not change it, at least make amends with it?
What was the question?
So your regret was that you always held back from being your truest self. That would have been your regret.
Yeah.
So since you're not in the hospital bed, you're right here breathing. Do you feel that you can change that regret for the
Oh,
sake moving
yeah,
forward?
of course.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to make it to the NBA now, but yeah, as of recently, since this Instagram page and since me opening up and expressing myself, I've been wanting to share my story, whether it be a book, through documentaries, through social media, to help and inspire others.
You're the author of your life, Buck. What's your picture perfect ending?
Just knowing how many people I've impacted. Like, I want it to be like a lot. Like, I want to impact a lot of people. And yeah, it'd be really cool to help people along with, like having a family of my own, of course, at some point.
That's it.
That's it. All right. Bro, there's so much that, like,